In the quiet towns of central Switzerland, behind the doors of care homes where the elderly were supposed to feel safe and cared for, a dark shadow had been lurking for years. Residents who should have spent their final days in peace were instead meeting mysterious and premature deaths, and no one could initially understand why. This story is about one man, a nurse, who would go on to become one of the most shocking figures in Swiss criminal history, a figure who earned a chilling nickname from the media, the Angel of Death. Roger Andermatt, a man trained to heal and protect, moved quietly through the halls of nursing homes, appearing devoted and compassionate. He was someone who understood the vulnerability of his elderly patients, many of whom were women aged between 66 and 95, suffering from illnesses such as Alzheimer's disease or requiring intensive care. To the outside world, he was a caring nurse, someone who brought relief and comfort. But beneath that calm exterior, there was a darkness few could have anticipated. Over a period of 6 years, from the mid-1990s to 2001, he would take the lives of those under his care, leaving a trail of sorrow, confusion, and horror. The method was disturbingly consistent. Some patients received lethal doses of medication, sedatives meant to ease pain and suffering, but in Andermatt's hands, they became instruments of death. Others were smothered, sometimes with plastic bags, sometimes with cloths, ensuring that their final moments were silent yet tragic. In some cases, it appeared that a combination of sedation and suffocation was used, leaving investigators struggling to discern natural causes for murder. The precision, the planning, and the calm in which these acts were carried out made the deaths initially seem accidental or the result of medical complications. Yet, as the numbers grew and patterns emerged, the horrifying truth began to surface. Andermatt's motives were as unsettling as his actions. He claimed that he acted out of compassion, that he wanted to end the suffering of patients who were frail, ill, and in pain. He spoke of empathy and a desire to deliver relief, of taking on the unbearable burden of overworked staff and overtaxed nursing teams. To him, these acts were not crimes. They were, in his words, acts of mercy. But compassion, no matter how sincere, cannot justify the taking of lives. Andermatt's interpretation of mercy led to the deaths of at least 22 confirmed victims, though investigations revealed that the number could have been as high as 27, with several more deaths possibly linked to his hands. The first suspicions arose after a series of unexplained deaths in nursing homes in Lucerne and surrounding districts. Staff began noticing that patients who had been stable would suddenly deteriorate and pass away under strange circumstances. When authorities were called in, Andermatt's calm demeanor and professional reputation initially allowed him to evade scrutiny. It wasn't until a particularly suspicious death triggered a deeper investigation that the truth began to unravel. By June 2001, police had gathered enough evidence to arrest him. During interrogation, Andermatt confessed to 9 deaths in just one nursing home, but he did not stop there. Further questioning revealed that he had been responsible for dozens more, stretching across multiple care facilities in the central Swiss regions of Lucerne, Obwalden, and Schwyz. He admitted responsibility for 27 killings, though the court ultimately sentenced him for 22. At least 3 deaths were later classified as assisted suicides, as investigators could not definitively determine whether his interventions were the primary cause. The scale of the murders shocked not only the families of the victims but also the wider public. How could a trusted nurse, trained to protect life, commit such acts repeatedly over several years? Andermatt himself described moments when he felt overwhelmed by the demands of his work, citing fatigue and stress as contributing factors. He claimed that each act brought a strange sense of relief, a momentary liberation from the pressures of caring for those who depended on him. Yet these explanations offered little comfort to the families who had lost their loved ones in such horrifying circumstances. Court proceedings revealed the chilling details of his methods. In some cases, he administered high doses of tranquilizers to patients, drugs that in normal circumstances were intended for comfort but were lethal in the quantities he used. In other cases, he suffocated victims with plastic bags or folded cloths, sometimes after sedating them to ensure they would not resist. The combination of sedatives and suffocation was particularly insidious, leaving minimal evidence and making it difficult for investigators to immediately identify foul play. The trial drew intense media attention, with the nickname Angel of Death capturing the public's imagination and horror. Reporters and citizens alike struggled to reconcile the image of a compassionate caregiver with the reality of a calculated murderer. The court heard testimony from colleagues who described Andermatt as overworked and compassionate, but ultimately, the evidence against him was overwhelming. The sheer number of deaths, the methods used, and the confessions provided a grim portrait of someone who had turned mercy into murder. In January 2005, Roger Andermatt was sentenced to life in prison. The sentence included a minimum of 15 years before parole eligibility, reflecting the gravity of his crimes. Additionally, the court ordered him to pay compensation to the families of 4 victims and cover court costs amounting to significant sums. The case underscored not only the vulnerabilities of elderly care systems but also the complex and disturbing psychology of a person who believed he was delivering compassion through death. The Swiss authorities faced a difficult balancing act in dealing with these crimes. Euthanasia is tolerated under strict regulations in some Swiss cantons, and debates around assisted suicide and end-of-life care complicated public perception of the case. However, the court's decision made it clear that active, unconsented killing by a caregiver is not mercy but murder, regardless of intent. Today, Andermatt remains imprisoned, his story a grim reminder of how trust can be exploited and how appearances can be deceiving. Families who lost loved ones continue to grapple with the emotional and psychological fallout of discovering that someone entrusted with their care was, in fact, taking their lives. Scholars, journalists, and criminologists study cases like this to understand how caregivers, under the guise of compassion, can cross the line into criminality, and how systems can be strengthened to prevent such tragedies. The legacy of Roger Andermatt's crimes extends beyond the individuals he killed. It raises questions about oversight in healthcare, the pressures faced by caregivers, and the fine line between compassionate care and abuse of power. It serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us that even in environments designed for care and safety, darkness can creep in unnoticed, and vigilance is essential to protect the most vulnerable among us. If this story shocked you, and you want to uncover more tales that are as mysterious, chilling, and mind-boggling as this one, make sure to subscribe to Shocking Facts. Every week, we bring you stories that reveal the hidden, the unbelievable, and the terrifying corners of our world. Don't miss it.